Okay, are you ready? Okay. Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, November 7th. The time is 7:04 p.m. We're going to begin City Council. We'll start with a roll call vote, starting with Councilwoman Meekum present.
Ince present.
Summer Hayes present.
Hurst present.
McEwen here.
Okay. We have a quorum, so we'll begin. We'll turn the time over to Councilmember Ince for a legislative prayer or thought.
Just let me put my food in, didn't you?
You knew it was coming, though.
Yeah, I forgot. Our Father which art in heaven, we bow our heads before thee at the beginning of this city council meeting and give thanks for the many blessings that we enjoy as friends and neighbors and citizens. We're thankful for the beautiful area that we live in. We're thankful for good people. We're thankful for the privilege of self-government. We're thankful for the moisture we've had both this day and in the past year. We pray, Father, that thy Spirit might be with us this evening, that we might be able to understand each other and be fair and make judicious decisions, and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If everyone can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is our open session. This is an opportunity for people to come and state concerns or comments regarding our city. So we'll open that session now if anyone wants to come forward.
Not a huge online presence.
We do have one person online, but they said they're not here to comment.
Okay. It appears that we don't have anyone, so we'll move on to the next item, which is a presentation by Rocky Mountain Power Foundation for a grant award. And are we turning the time over to Haley? Bryce? Okay.
Well, thank you for letting me come out here. I am Logan Taggart with Rocky Mountain Power. I'm the regional business manager that oversees Centerville City. So we are out here to present a check for a after-school programs, right? And yes, if really the check has already been sent. We like to bring a big check and get a picture and everything. So big thing would be, we'd love for, anybody who would want to come and be part of the picture, come down and take a picture with us.
Sounds like a great Mayor Pro Tem activity.
Mayor Pro Tem and 2 outgoing councilmen.
I like that. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's go have a picture.
While they're coming down, Haley, Bryce, which after-school activities will we be using the funds for? Oh, sorry, we're going to do that.
No, we can do it now. I think it'd be great now if you want to cover the mic, Haley.
Yeah, so our plan is to kind of involve our youth city council with this after-school program. We'd really like to turn it into a leadership program. So we'll work with the local elementary schools, their principals and family advocates to bring them in and have our youth city council, kind of like a mentor-mentee program, teaching leadership skills.
Fantastic.
I don't want to be in it.
Oh, come on.
Bryce, actually, here, let me take a picture and you can get it.
Hey, Haley's in it for sure.
What's that?
Okay. There we go. Now we got it.
Excellent. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Fantastic.
One more, and I'll photo bomb it.
the fun part of the job when we get to bring money, you know?
Thanks, Logan. Appreciate it.
Just, we're really grateful for Rocky Mountain Power because they gave us for the batting cage, and then they gave us another 3,000 this year. So it's a great partnership that we've continued to have, and we hope to continue to receive funds in the future from them, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Logan.
very
much, very
much. Yeah, thank you so much. You have been very supportive of our city, and we really do appreciate your efforts to do that. These are great programs for our youth, and we appreciate that support.
We want to make sure that we're good community partners and, you know, any way we can help the communities and support the communities that we serve, we want to make sure that we're doing that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm flipping on my computer to the next item. Okay, business items. We will move forward with the purchase approval for the community park lighting. Bruce?
Yes, you should have the new proposal. Do you have any questions? We got what I think is a exceptional deal. We did some research, and it turns out our building permits require businesses to have a 130 mile an hour wind rating on their light poles. So, you know, we want to meet that with our, our parks, and so we went back to their engineers and their designers and talked with our city engineer and got all the specs. They were able to find a supplier that could get the heavier grade poles at a lesser cost than the poles that they had been making. So they were able to supply the poles and the installation at the same quote, but just a higher cost of shipping because they weigh a lot more, and because they're a specialty pole, they're not in stock, so there'll be a delay on making them. So it'll be February when they finish, and they can install them in March. And my recommendation is that we go ahead and wait the few months and pay the extra shipping and get the
The
100.
perfect time to wait anyway,
Yeah,
deadline-wise.
yeah. March starts crowding in baseball. It'd be nice to get them in before we start having, people in the parking lots and things. But I think it's worth it to get the heavier duty poles. There's a chance that they will be the only light poles in Centerville that actually are 130 mile an hour wind rating, but these will be, so.
I do have a question, and I'm not trying to throw a wrench in anything. I'm supportive of it. But we talked about the wind rating mostly because we were worried about the solar plates on the top taking off, and and this really isn't going to affect that. We're getting better poles, but the chance of those solar things taking flight are still about the same. Is that correct?
There's no chance. So that's not what fails. In high winds, what fails is the integrity of the pole.
So you're not afraid of
and it has to do with the weight, how much weight is on the top of the pole, the light fixture itself, and with the weights that are on them, and the angles that they put the panels and everything. It's still the pole that takes that's the first thing that's going to fail in a high wind, and so that's why they have to do the heavier grade poles. But in talking with the engineers, is that their top fixture has never been an issue.
Okay. That was my concern, as we had just talked about them flying around the park and
They
mocking
actually
people.
can make them hurricane for up to 180 mile an hour wind ratings. They have the capabilities to do that, and they have done that in places where they have hurricanes. And to be fair with them, they were giving us quotes based on AASHTO's wind ratings for our area are 90 miles an hour. They're unaware that we have a special wind rating for Centerville and Farmington City that's just our two cities in the whole state of Utah that is the 130 mile an hour. And they just weren't aware of that. They were looking at the scales of AASHTO requirements and wanted to make sure they always meet those. So they wanted to make sure you knew that they weren't trying to sell us something inferior for our area, that they were trying to meet the standards and just were not aware of our higher standard just for our special area.
Well, I know it looked painful that we kept going back and forth on it, but now we're getting the right product, so.
Right.
Yeah, it's
It
all
was
the,
well worth it.
yeah, it was worth the additional back and forth to get to where we are, so I'm satisfied with that.
I do want to show appreciation to Bruce and all the work you put into. We talked about this on Tuesday, and that was a little bit of extra effort, and I appreciate his negotiation skills. I don't know.
But now
Keep
you've
the
got me
cost the same.
thinking, because you said these will be the only ones that are 130 rated, so now the question is what other city facilities have poles that aren't there?
So I'll answer that question. Part of our staff meeting on Tuesday, I said, well, all of our signs within the city, 130 streetlights, signs, and Kevin and Mike went back and started looking at them, and our street signs are actually at 100-mile-per-hour rating. So Mark Marchand is researching the cost to upgrade those. So that's why we lost a lot of signs a couple years ago in our wind rating. So we'll be slowly improving our poles throughout.
Do we dare ask Logan from Rocky Mountain Power what their poles are rated for?
Hey, he hung around, so I think that's.
You don't have to answer that, Logan, but you may want to just, send that one up the chain.
And to be fair, Kevin also mentioned he thinks UDOT and probably everyone else looks at the AASHTO standard. They spec things out and they build things according, it says, and you noticed we lost some UDOT signs that buckled and broke. He says they're probably only meeting the AASHTO standard of 90 mile an hour through Centerville and Farmington, and not looking forward, because when they check that, it's not, you have to go to the cities, each city, and they don't do each city, they're just looking at what's the standard for this corridor, and they buy the stuff they need, and so it may be that our poles withstand more than the others.
Yeah, that was not on my buyer disclosures when I bought my house, that we have a special wind rating for these two cities.
Kevin, that may be something you just reach out to Tiffany Pocock on, and just say, whatever I-15 project you have planned and your specs, we're gonna talk about specs anyway tonight, but as it relates to wind rating for fixtures and signage, that they should consider that.
Because it's not a theoretical, it will happen.
Yeah, it will happen again. So, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, are we okay if we make a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of new solar lighting for Community Park from GSL Electric for installation equal to $53,000, and Fon Rocher Lighting America for equipment and materials equal to $203,100.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, we'll start with Councilmember Ince.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Next item, city standards and specifications as well as detailed drawings. Is this Kevin? I'm super excited about this one.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I love it.
Yeah, this is super
Engineering
exciting. Every, maybe couple of years or so, we try to update our standards. One of the causes for this update was the Division of Drinking Water. They came out with some new specifications. They reviewed our specifications and had, probably a couple dozen comments of things that we needed to update. Simple example might be wording noting that culinary water line has to be 10 feet away from a sewer line. I mean, that's something we always do, but they wanted that written on our details and in our specifications. So most of it was to accommodate them, and then we have some standards, standard detailed drawings that staff likes to modify as we get questions that arise. So there have been some storm drain details that have been modified a little bit, updated, and some notes. But the standard drawings is kind of, there's about 20 some odd sheets of standard details, drawings, and then there's a few hundred pages of specs that are very exciting to read if you get the chance, so.
I kind of did a little bit of searching, just looking at, I'm assuming that the red on the spreadsheet is the things that you were changing.
Correct.
So, for example, minimum water main size 4 inches without fire hydrants, 8 inches with fire hydrants. I kind of looked around for that, just trying to type in words that may not be listed a couple hundred times. And didn't see that, but I'm assuming that might be references to the ASTM
Well,
standards?
and that is on our, so we put that note on our detailed drawings.
Okay,
So it's interesting because the contractors, they're usually looking at the drawings. We also put the specs in the bid document, but very few contractors read the specs.
I agree with that, but in the case of a discrepancy, they will reference to the specs. So I would get it in the specs too.
Correct, we wanna
Okay.
make sure they're consistent, because we don't want a contractor to
there's-
come back and say,
if-
well,
if-
we did, because it's one, and if there's
I
a,
100% agree with you. They do not read the specs, and that is part of my concern with these changes that Division of Drinking Water is recommending. Not that they shouldn't recommend them and not that we shouldn't follow them, but are we prepared with inspection and everything else to make sure that contractors are meeting those? How are we
Yes, definitely.
training and how are we making sure that all the staff is aware of all of those specification changes?
Yeah, that's a good point. So one of the great things about an update is we brought most of the city staff to get, Public Works. So we had Mark Marchant, Dave, we had, Mike, of course, myself, my assistant, and we had Cameron. So we all sat down together, we went through each of the detailed drawings. We didn't read through all the specifications, but we went through all the drawings. That gives us a chance to train everybody and cross-train. Because a lot of times, you know, Cameron is the storm drain person, he's gonna run into some culinary water questions or, you know, vice versa. So that gave us an opportunity to kind of get everybody on the same page, make sure we agreed on all of the updates. I will say this, the standard drawings and specs did go back to the state reviewer, and she did pass off on the fact that we had the notes. On that particular note, we actually require all of our mains to be at least 8-inch, so we're a little bit of a higher standard than what the state, we don't allow any 4-inch, even if a
That's
fire
great.
hydrant is on it or not. But those are some kind of minor details that we go through, again, every other year or as the need arises. And, but we'll take that comment back about making sure the specs cross-reference the details.
and you may wanna consider that you have just a generic note on the detail drawings that say, if there's a discrepancy between the detail and the spec governs so that there isn't, you know, maybe you missed one or two, I don't know. Would you prefer that the spec governs, or would you prefer the
I'd
detail?
probably prefer
govern?
that the detail,
So,
govern-
so maybe
yes.
do reverse of what I just said.
Yes.
So long as at least there's some catch-all that says which one governs which in the event of a discrepancy, I think that's what would be best.
yeah, a lot of times the specs are more general and they're taken from UDOT or APWA
Okay.
or Division of Drinking.
All right,
but-
Gina, how do you feel about that?
I am actually concerned about that because I really do think if there was a contested something between a contractor and the city, the court may rule in favor of the
So
specs.
maybe
Even-
maybe the generic language to say if there's a discrepancy, you need approval in writing from the city, from the municipality.
Maybe.
That way, it gives you the opportunity, if there is a discrepancy, to
Yeah.
clarify it.
I am by no means a specifications expert, but I do think one of the things that might be helpful, especially because you're right, the APWA and the ASTM, those specs sometimes don't always meet all of the city requirements, or they don't meet certain UDOT standards. But one way to maybe showcase that is to highlight those, like either they're at the end of the specs or they're called out in a different color, so it's easier to see, like, oh, this is specific to Centerville. You're right, the specs are really long, I didn't read them word for word either.
Yeah,
But,
ideally what we would do is, you know, maybe in the next go-around, we would make sure all of the specs matched all of the detailed drawings, because that's the best case. I mean,
Yes.
it is the best case, it's
And
easy
so-
to miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super easy to miss that, I mean, that was maybe one of my questions too, is there anybody reviewing specs to the details and kind of matching them up?
So
That's
the
a
main
really
review that we
time-consuming thing.
got was from the state, Division of Drinking Water. Danny Zabilan, she's a licensed engineer now, but that was the main reviewer. So we were reviewing it internally, but then we would send it back to the state. and she was looking through and checking off to make sure that we addressed each one of those comments.
Okay.
And my understanding is that she was reviewing both the detailed drawings and the specs. But I do agree that we ought to make sure that there's not discrepancies between the two.
Kevin, this came up when I was on Planning Commission, when there was a consideration for a private drive. And one of the concerns was, well, maybe at some future point, they want to convert a private drive and dedicate it back to the city. And do private drive specifications align with city specification? I think at the time, it was, yeah, we're going to require that. Are there any instances where you feel there would be a gap between private infrastructure that we may take over as a city and making sure that that meets our spec up front?
Good
On
question.
a plan review?
Yeah, so for example, Canyon Point on Parish Lane and Fourth East, that is a private road. But it is constructed and all the details on their approved set of drawings, that street and all the storm drain, culinary water, all meet the city standard, so.
And is that a requirement in our ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Is that the new one that's going in right now?
No, that's been in place for quite some time. I'm trying to think back
But
of
which
some other
development,
private.
which development is that you're referring to?
Chad Morris.
The new one then?
The new one, yes,
Correct.
that
What I
is.
said.
That was the one that essentially came
Yeah.
up.
Another example is the Hive, that road,
Yes.
that lane, that is built to the city standard. The road cross-section is
Okay.
the same as if it were a city street.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-26, updating and amending the city standards and specifications as discussed.
Second.
All right, any other,
Just a friendly amendment, including detailed drawings, I think is the staff recommendation.
Except the inclusion of detailed drawings.
okay. We'll start with Councilman Summerhays.
Aye.
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 Okay. That motion passes. Let's move on to Chase Lane well generator repair. Looks like Mike is presenting.
Mike's breaking stuff again. Just kidding, Mike.
I'm glad I didn't hear what he said. So unfortunately, I get to come before you and ask for some money. So Chase Lane Generator has failed us. Our guys were out doing the monthly report 3 or 4 months ago. When they were doing their walk around on the generator, found a big puddle of antifreeze on the ground. With further having our mechanic go in there, they pulled an oil sample and the oil was full of antifreeze. So the motor was basically shot. Dave had Precision come in, tear it apart far enough that we could see what we're into it. And so our options were, we can rebuild the motor for $66,982.76, or we can have a brand new motor brought in and bolted back up for about additional $6,480.24, which I think is probably the right way to go. With going the other way, the cheaper route, we don't know what we're gonna run into exactly and what's gonna happen. A couple things that's nice about, we could look at going for a whole new generator. There, we're talking 104,000, but the nice thing about staying with this generator, keeping this motor, is we get out of a lot of the new upgraded emission things. I don't know if it's a key thing for us. We find that the more emission things that are on there, the problems we're running into it. So we're trying to get this done. We didn't have it in our budget to have that kind of money, so a couple things that I'd like to bring. We always find these remedies, right, as we go along the trail. So we found a couple things that we think is going to help out. Dave has always pulled the oil sample, so we'll continue to do so. The past ones have been fine, a little bit of water, normal, nothing alarming, but something has happened in that period of time between oil changes that just caused the motor to start corroding up in different areas. The heads were bad, the block was bad, and so anyway.
What was the age on that? motor?
It was new with the reservoir, and I can't, or the well,
Okay.
and I can't remember exactly. It, you know, but it's not old enough. It should have lasted longer.
That's what I was concerned about, is it didn't seem like it should be old.
And so we,
So
me
that
and-
gets a question, that George, sorry. What would be the warranty on a new motor?
well, they'll warranty it operational wise, I believe it's a year.
Okay.
I'd have to check in to make sure.
That
We
seems
didn't get
standard
into
to me,
that
but-
far.
Okay.
Because of the awkward spot it is, it, you know, incurs the cost of having a crane come in twice to lift it out. They're gonna bring it to our shop, bolt it up, and then test it and then take it back. So that is one of the problem. Like I was mentioning, going forward, we found out a couple things that we didn't know is, part of the problem is when you run a generator, the way we've been running all of our generators is we fire them up and immediately put a demand on them. And then talking with Precision, they said, well, that's not the right way. The right way is you fire it up, bring it up to temperature, kick the load on it, run it, and then when you go to shut it off, you take and reverse it back down. So you let the motor run till all the oil cools down and everything, the turbo has a chance to cool down. So I told him, he told me it was a couple $100 a generator. I said, we're doing it. Well, I want to do that. So he's going to come in and set it up. This one will get set up that way. I think that, you know, longevity, I think that'll make them last longer. It's saddening that this has gone bad. I mean, it's not that old, period, you know, but more and more we're finding things just don't last as long as they used to either, but that's still a lot of money. So,
So Mike, on your recommendation, it says approved purchase of new well generator. Probably should be restated to say new well generator motor, correct?
right, it's option 2, which is just the new motor,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you remind us, how big is the tank up there and what's our runtime on that we're anticipating if we have to run it on full generator?
We can run that about a day and a half
Okay.
on the generator, depending on the load. I mean, it just, it's like anything, you know, it's how fast you're going, if things are pulling and that. I wish we had it going right now. Weber Basin has come to me and asked me if I can, normally, remember October, November, December, we run on Weber Basin water. So they've come to me, they've got a leak on the aqueduct, and they want us to supplement about 700,000 gallons of water a day. So we're having to fire up a couple of our wells to do this. I wish this one was working because I could keep it running longer. It's a quieter motor. I can pump it north, I can pump it south. I wished it was working, but it's not going to be.
Are we getting those 700,000 gallons?
We still get our allotment. We're
Next
okay.
year?
Well,
Well, do we get our allotment plus whatever we've contributed to that?
yeah.
I was thinking the same
Well,
thing.
let's go back and talk about the generators. There's nothing better than running a generator on a load. So we'll be running Rick Creek, and we'll be running that on a load we're gonna be running it 8 hours a day, basically for next week. So Monday through Friday, unless they get it done sooner, then we'll cut down, as well as new City Hall well. We're gonna, you know, keep the neighbors up around that area awake a lot. No, we're just gonna run them during the day, 8 hours a day is what I committed to. That's about 700,000. So we're gonna get the option to run these, and we get to test the generators out a little bit more and make sure that things are working right. So anyhow, that's usually longer than we run them. So, and I don't know if they'll go quite that long, just depends on how much demand we have in the system, and we'll just, while our guys are here, we'll keep the reservoirs full, and then when we go home, we'll float off of Weber Basin. We're burning about, well, what was it? Yeah, about 700,000, about 900,000 gallons a day right now is what we're using in the system. So, anyway, that's my request, and hopefully we can move forward, and it's about 5 to 6 weeks to get the motor here.
Can I ask a question? It looks like all 3 bids came from Precision Power. I know it's for different things. Does that meet procurement requirements?
Well, the thing is they're the only ones that can get us the same motor. So it's either that, or if we headed down the road of the new one, then we would be getting 3 bids. But this
Okay.
is a repair that they have the corner market, so to speak. It's kind of how it goes.
Okay.
And I saw Nate chuckling. He may be chuckling for another reason. He's probably waiting for council member Summerhays to wonder where,
Pay attention.
where
to
in the
Nate.
budget, obviously it's gonna be a budget amendment.
Right.
So that's why it's before you today. Really, it's, we're gonna come before you later with a budget amendment, because this is not budgeted for, which this is a water department, so what you're pulling from reserves to fund it.
Yeah, so it could be a transfer
Potentially, but there also might be throughout the year some cost savings where
Yeah, right.
we might not need a budget amendment, really trying to get it on record. You know, a vote saying we approve the budget amendment in the future, and that budget amendment will come later.
Yeah.
Well, and Nate does a great job, you know, and we just sold the 2 vehicles, you know, that was about approximately 66,000. Nate would probably remember about right that we brought back in, but I don't know where Nate had that plugged into my budget. So, I mean, there is some money that we've made off of the selling of a couple of trucks, which we did about, I think we come close to about 70% of the new truck, which was good to know. And we're looking forward to next year because that's when we made our statement that we would come out really good on them. So I'm hoping it still works. So,
As far as the water enterprise fund goes, are you able to do the repair work and other things that you need to do and
we
keep up?
will, yeah. So,
All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of the new well generator motor in the amount of $73,463.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Any additional discussion? If not, I'll start with myself on the vote. Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes.
I'd just like to thank you all for the support you give our department. I really appreciate your help and everything. You know, being the team player and our endeavors of making a safe water system. We appreciate you guys. Thanks.
We appreciate your
Thank you,
efforts.
Yeah, we love drinking it.
Yeah. You're providing a really important thing. Okay, summary action items. Do we have any questions? If not, do we have someone who wants to make a motion on that? Okay.
Somebody else does.
I'd make a motion to approve the items on the summary action calendar, including the bid award on Central Flex Waterline parts to Conan, Maine for $252,360.22. Bid award on the Culinary Waterline to Tom Stewart Construction in the amount of $481,478.03. And a police vehicle purchase, in the amount of $154,686, I think it is. I don't have my contact.
$866.
$866, okay.
Second?
Okay. Do we need to do a roll call vote on this? Okay, starting, do we have any other discussion? If not, we'll start with Councilmember Ewan.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion passes.
I will say, just as a point of note, maybe Mike and Kevin were surprised. I was surprised by how big the gap was on the water line project to Stewart between them and the second bidder, let alone the highest bidder. That's a pretty wide range, which
That's a big range.
it's great that we get 5 bids, because we were only getting 1 or 2 responses back, and now we're getting broad responses with bigger price ranges. So I think that bodes well for future projects.
Well, that's,
For right now.
they're the current contractor on the project, so
Yeah,
there's
so a
some
little
cost
lower
savings
overhead.
for mobilization and all that. And of course, they want to be able to own that, so they probably bid a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes as recorded.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll turn the time over to Councilwoman Meekum.
So I know how much we still don't have our landmarks up and going, and I'm assuming we're gonna end up waiting until we have a new planning director. So, Utopia didn't have their meeting last time, and so really, basically what I have is kind of what I said the time before is Bozeman is going very slow, had to reduce our income from them. Idaho Falls is doing great, and they're making really good money up in Idaho Falls. It's going faster than they thought it would. And Bountiful, as you probably know, has broke ground, and They're just a partner with Utopia. They'll own all the infrastructure. And it's going quite fast, too. Have a meeting? No, I don't have anything really new.
Okay. Do we have any other council members that would like to?
I
do.
saved plenty of time for,
I have too much to report. I think that's important, at least for our council. Some of you may or may not have gotten calls. We had our truth and taxation hearing last night at the rec center. By my estimate, 150, couple hundred people showed up. And obviously gave some pretty impassioned pleas. Most of them opposed to the increase because it turned out to be a 140% increase on a medium-priced home. That's $2.50 per month, but it's 140%, right? There were a few people that were supportive of it, understood it. When it all shook out and we took a vote about 9:30 after hearing 2.5 hours or more of commentary, the motion failed 3-5, which means we leave the truth and taxation hearing open, but we're meeting next Monday to try and get some resolution, knowing that there's got to be a tax increase when you don't increase them for 16 years. So that's in process right now. Bountiful City's mayor and full council was there. They read a joint statement, which was it was a really good letter. I mean, we talked about doing some kind of support. I just never got to that point. But the president of the Utah Taxpayers Association was there, recognized the need for the tax increase, but not for the 140%. Representative Cutler was there. Fox 13 was there. So we have some work to do, obviously, and I think it'll come down to a balanced approach, hopefully with those who weren't in favor of the balanced approach when this motion was passed back in May, to have a tax increase, some financial review of operational expenses, some fee increases for competitive teams, not for your basic level things that, you know, maybe our more needy population needs, but if you're on a comp swim team, for example, my argument has always been, hey, if your child chooses to play for Forza or the DC Wind or whatever competitive team it is, the public doesn't pay that coach's salary.
Right.
And in the case of the rec center, we're paying that coach's salary, and I just don't feel that's right. So it'll be an interesting discussion. I don't know where it's going to land. I know where I'm going to make a motion, but I'll hear everybody out, and we'll see how that shakes out.
So you say the motion failed for the 140%?
That's correct.
So they're renoticing the public with a new amount?
No, that we're leaving it open, so you don't need to renotice it. It just failed.
So you have a truth and taxation hearing for a different percentage that's not been revealed to the public?
Yeah, and there was some.
I don't know that you can do that.
There was some sidebars with legal counsel and the finance director trying to figure out dates and notices and things like that. So we took their guidance on a continued, the public hearing is closed for that, but there was something where there wasn't a requirement for the notice, is if it was a continuance of the meeting, even though the motion failed.
If the percentage changes, and I'm not asking Lisa to weigh in on this one, but my viewpoint is, if the percentage changes, your truth and taxation hearing has to be redone completely.
Yeah,
Because you're now talking about a different percentage, not what the public was there to respond to.
Correct. And
So,
I don't know the answer to that yet, and maybe the answer that we'll get on next Monday will be, hey, you can decide on it, but we'll have to renotice it so long as we meet the December 31 deadline, which gets
I'm interested to see how that turns out, but I think you'd probably have to renotice it, because then the public has to be able to have time to prepare for the new number. So it'll be interesting.
and I'm not going to disagree with that.
No, I'm not asking you, I'm just saying that that's one that if they just say, hey, we picked a new number and they're continuing the same hearing, I think it's gonna cause them some problems.
Yeah. Some of you probably got emails, so shifting gears, some of you may have gotten an email a few weeks ago from Michaela Lawson. She sent it out to a lot of people on a discrimination complaint. Today, there was a grandma request from a news outlet regarding this issue, but at the same time, if you get calls about this, we've asked for evidence for witnesses that the complainant had said there is, and that has not been yet provided, so that is still in process right now, to see how that plays out. So,
This is pertaining to South Davis Rec.
this is just South Davis Rec. Yes, it's
I haven't
still,
seen that grammar request.
what's that?
I haven't seen that grammar
Yeah,
request.
nope,
But
nope,
okay.
this
All
is,
right.
yep, exactly. So in the complainant referred to witnesses, videos, evidence, but hasn't provided that to the rec district, and therefore, we haven't been able to act on it. And so legal counsel's reached out to this individual again to say, hey, look, we take these claims seriously, but we need your help in gathering
We
evidence.
need you to provide the evidence.
Exactly, to help close that issue. So that's where we're at if people reach out to you. And then lastly, our insurance got updated, one of which was a discussion about an active shooter policy. It's a little different with the rec center because you're an open-facing, well-attended facility. I asked Lisa in advance, say, what do we have in place? I don't know if we need to consider that for us as a city because we don't have much of that, except that I suppose we have ball fields and rec leagues, things like that. But that may be something staff may want to chat about. The policies vary and pricing, but, it's the policy, we did a $3 million limits, and it was like $7,900 for the year. So I don't know if we want to consider that, if we reach out to our insurance broker and ask them what other cities are doing, but that's just something that we may want to consider. And then lastly, I attended the Wasatch Choice meeting last week, and that was more about trails, active transportation, kind of trying to identify additional trails or methodologies. Paved trails is really what it is, or bike lanes, how to get people safely. It's kind of incorporating some of the things we've seen from UDOT, but also within our own communities. So anyways, it's been busy. Any questions for me on that stuff?
No, thank you for your help on the rec board. I appreciate knowing that you're there and that you're keeping them on task.
You've made it more exciting than it's ever been.
Well, Kate Bradshaw kind of said exactly what I said, and she said, when she was appointed by Mayor Harris, she thought, oh, yes, that's going to be great. I'm going to be the rec. I love recreation, and it's been far more challenging than we ever supposed it might be. So it's still, a work in progress, but work to do.
You're doing great work. Anyone else? If not, I'll turn the time over to Brant.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Hurst. I do have a few items, several items. First one, I do want to let the council know we have selected and made an offer to a new treasurer, Ron Chand. He will be starting November 27th, that's the date. So we're really excited to have him on board. We think he'll be a great addition to the team. Luann has agreed to stay on a little bit longer, so we have at least 1 week of cross-training. So appreciate Luann staying on because her retirement was, this week. I think was originally scheduled. So anyway, that'll be great. We're excited to have him join our team. And then Mike was able to finally get a water person to come help us out, Jonathan Taylor, and he will be starting on Monday, 11/13. So that'll be another great addition. Then just a quick update on the Community Development Director recruitment. We have received all of our applications, well, a number of applications. We still kind of leave it open if any still want to apply. What we've done is Bryce has sent out digitally to all of you, but the plan for the panel is the mayor, 2 council members, myself, Lisa Romney, Donna, and maybe one more. That's 7 people, which is pretty intense. However, I feel like this position may require that intensity to make sure we're getting the right community development director in place. So those that, if you all want to just share your thoughts on maybe your tops, and then those that are selected to be on the panel can take that into account as we select those that we're going to interview. So we have a couple of great candidates, and
I'm hoping so.
we'll see where that goes. So.
Well, it's passion.
Has Corey given a definitive timeline? Is he gonna stay on to help transition as well? What do you feel like you want to tell us at this point?
He's open, but at the same time, we're just playing it. We'll go through this process, and Corey is definitely flexible, but I don't necessarily want to give us an answer today what you're willing to do.
No,
We just
yeah.
need to go through our process methodically and make sure.
Yeah, and that's not, that wasn't my question. My question wasn't, hey, be demanding. My question was, how flexible is it? It sounds like there is maybe a little bit.
Potentially, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But even if he retires and he's still willing to be a resource, I think he'd be willing to do that. So.
Well, as passionate as Centervilleans are about the planning process, I'd say 7's the minimum number for an interview.
Include a bunch of residents.
Yeah, include a bunch of
Passionate about
hostile
planning or
residents.
lack thereof?
I'm just looking at it in terms of, I've seen Corey wade through some flamethrowers before in meetings, so yeah.
Yes.
So I've made sure Corey's helped out with questions. He's helping out with questions and giving his thoughts on the candidate. So he's still engaged. Of course, he cares about the position he's invested 19 years of his life in. So we're making sure he's still engaged, and I appreciate that from him. A quick update on branding effort. Bryce, tell me if I'm off base, but we've got some great feedback from the council and some of our staff and all of that, and our committees. The process we're at now is we do have a draft document that we're reviewing, and then we're going to put out a 10-question survey. 4 of those will be geared towards the general plan that Corey has developed, and so we're going to get that out there. When? What's our plan? When's our plan to get the questionnaire out there? So we're really close to finalizing the branding. So just let you know that we're still making progress there. Pickleball courts, Councilmember Hirsch, you might be able to help me with this one, but it was discussed at the Parks and Rec meeting, and I understand the committee members are going out and kind of conducting their own little bit of research
Yep.
to bring back a recommendation to the council on how to proceed with the pickleball courts. Anything else to add to that?
I don't think so right now. I'm curious to see what they'll come back with, but I think that's probably, yeah, that's where it got left.
Great, thank you. And then lastly, Veterans Day is coming up, and I just want to actually publicly acknowledge and thank the veterans who currently work for Centerville City. And Lisa Bednars is a veteran, Bob Richardson in Parks, David Davis and Dave Boucher in the police department, and of course Councilmember McEwen as a veteran, and myself. So I appreciate all of our veterans who continue. As I'm on the Veterans Advisory Committee for ICMA now, I've been selected, and our bumper sticker, we call it, is still serving, working in local government. So, what did I call it? Still serving, serving in local government, something like that. So I totally forgot now. But anyway, still serving. I think that's great. That's all I have, Councilor Rogers.
Awesome, thank you.
Any questions for me?
Anyone? Are we having a closed session?
Yeah.
Okay, so can we,
So motion to adjourn the regular city council meeting to enter into a closed session to discuss the lease, sale, or acquisition of real property with no intent to return to open session.
Second.
we'll do roll call vote. Councilmember Meekum?
Aye.
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 Okay.
So you can adjourn the regular one.
Now I what?
You adjourn the regular council meeting.
Oh, okay, and then we need to adjourn the regular council meeting. Can we get a motion for that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.